Welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive. I want to start right off the bat by offering a divine blessing for your day and for your entire week ahead. We are really glad you're joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for being here with us. We've got a fascinating topic today.
We really do. Today, we're going into the historical and, well, the spiritual depths of Luke chapter 21. And we're using the insights from the Holman and NAA study Bibles to kind of guide us through this.
Right, because our mission today is to unpack the incredible contrasts in this text. It's pretty wild.
It really is. I mean, the text zooms from this incredibly intimate, mostly unnoticed act of devotion all the way to these terrifying, massive prophecies about a whole city being destroyed.
Yeah, the structural whiplash is just amazing. It completely subverts how the ancient world valued things, moving from fractions of a cent to, billions of dollars in gold and stone in just one breath.
So let's start with that micro-level scene. If you're familiar with the story of the widow's mite, you know the basics. But the archaeological details really change the whole texture of the moment.
They absolutely do. Jesus is watching people in the temple courtyard putting in their offerings. The wealthy are throwing in their surplus, but then this destitute widow drops in what the Greek calls two leptons.
And the study notes get super specific about what a lepton actually was back then, right?
Yeah, we're talking about the absolute lowest denomination of copper coin in Judea. It was tiny.
Like how tiny?
About a single centimeter in diameter, so roughly the size of a modern shirt button.
Oh, wow. That's practically microscopic for a coin.
Exactly. And the purchasing power was basically zero. A lepton was about 1/64th of a denarius, which was a day's wage, so two of these couldn't even buy a piece of bread. It was pocket lint.
But the physical setup of the courtyard makes this even more dramatic, doesn't it?
It does. There were 13 collection boxes in the temple, and the Mishnaic sources say they were shaped like trumpets.
That they were wide at the bottom and narrow at the top.
Yeah, large bronze or metal funnel. So it was deliberate acoustic engineering.
Meaning, when someone wealthy dumped in a heavy pouch of silver, it made this huge clattering noise. It was basically an ancient broadcasting system for how much you were giving.
Right, it was performative philanthropy. The architecture rewarded big, noisy donations.
But when the widow drops in her two 1-centimeter copper flakes, it makes what, zero sound?
Barely a metallic whisper. The building itself literally ignores her contribution.
That is such a powerful image. And Jesus uses that exact moment to invert the whole accounting system. He tells his followers, she gave the most.
Because it wasn't her surplus. It was 100% of her livelihood. God is measuring the internal sacrifice, not the external volume.
Right, which sets up the baseline argument perfectly. Human valuation loves massive, noisy displays, but divine valuation looks at the invisible reality.
And that lens is crucial because the very next sentence is this massive cinematic transition.
Right, we whip from a silent copper coin straight to the most ostentatious structure in the ancient world, Herod the Great's temple.
Yeah, the followers are standing there just marveling at the size of the stones and the gold. And the statistics in the NAA study notes are staggering.
It wasn't just a local building. The perimeter was 1.55 kilometers. That's double the size of the Acropolis in Athens.
It swallowed up a sixth of the entire old city of Jerusalem, and the engineering was almost impossible.
Yeah, the notes mention the foundation stones. How big were they again?
Some were up to 13.7 meters long. Single blocks of limestone weighing up to 570 tons.
570 tons. I mean, that's basically the foundation block of a modern skyscraper.
Exactly. They had to carve them, put them in giant wooden wheels, and use hundreds of oxen to move them. It represented pure, unadulterated permanence.
So when Jesus looks at this literal mountain of stone and gold and says, not one stone will be left upon another, it's not just a metaphor.
No, to a first-century listener, it sounded like a physical impossibility. Dismantling a 570-ton stone takes an industrial effort.
Right. It would require a catastrophic military force, which leads right into Jesus giving this very specific, terrifying warning.
He says that when they see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, desolation is near, and they have to flee to the mountains.
Which, military-wise, is completely counterintuitive. In the ancient world, if a foreign army shows up, you don't run to the exposed hills.
No, you run into the walled city. That's where the soldiers, the walls, and the food are.
Right. It's like telling someone to run out of a bomb shelter during an air raid and just stand in an open field.
It completely defies standard survival instincts. But the Holman Study Bible outlines the siege maps from 70 AD, and it shows exactly why he said that.
Because the Roman military machine under Titus didn't just attack the walls, right? They used total suffocation.
Exactly. They built a circumvallation wall, which is a wooden palisade that totally encircled Jerusalem. Nobody could get in or out.
And the timeline is brutal. The Roman 10th Legion set up camp right on the Mount of Olives.
Yeah, looking right down into the temple complex. By May, they breached the northern walls with battering rams.
And by July, they burned down the fortress Antonia, which was attached to the temple. They knew controlling the temple meant controlling the city.
And to make it worse, the city was packed with Passover pilgrims. And inside, radical zealot factions were fighting a civil war.
Wait, so they were fighting each other while the Romans were outside?
Yeah. The zealots actually burned their own food supply to force everyone to fight the Romans.
Oh, wow. So if you ran into the city for safety, you were trapped by the Romans and starved by your own people.
Fleeing to the mountains was literally the only viable way to survive. The bomb shelter was a death trap.
That is chilling. But going back to the temple stones, why would the Romans spend the massive labor required to dismantle the temple block by block?
Yeah.
Usually they kept infrastructure intact.
It was driven by human greed combined with physics. The fire in the temple was incredibly intense because of the cedar roofs.
And it melted the gold.
Yeah. The vast amounts of gold on the walls melted and seeped down into the cracks between those massive 570-ton limestone blocks.
So when the fire died down, the Roman soldiers realized there was a fortune solidified in the joints.
Exactly. They used iron levers and crowbars to pry the stones apart one by one to scrape out the gold.
And they threw the stones down into the valley. So they fulfilled the exact, seemingly impossible prophecy, all because they were obsessed with the very wealth Jesus critiqued with the widow's mite.
It's a perfect, tragic, full circle. But the text doesn't stop there. It expands from the local destruction of Jerusalem to massive cosmic signs and severe personal persecution.
Right. The warnings escalate fast. Earthquakes, famines, plagues, and false messiahs saying, the time is near.
And the personal cost is brutal. Jesus says followers will be dragged before kings, but it's not just the state betraying them.
It's family too, right? Parents, brothers, friends, turning them in. The whole family unit collapses.
Yes, Jesus is very clear. He says some of you will be put to death.
And then comes one of the biggest paradoxes in the whole text. Right after saying some will be executed, he says, but not a hair of your head will perish.
It is so jarring. How can your hair not perish if your body is literally being executed?
Right, you can't promise physical safety while predicting martyrdom. We have to look at what level of reality this text is actually operating on.
And the study notes help unlock this with the Greek word for perseverance used in the next verse. Hypomone.
Hypomone, what does that break down to?
Hypo means under, and meno means to abide or remain. It's not about passively surviving. It's a defiant capacity to bear immense weight without losing your identity.
So the text is forcing the listener to separate physical survival from their eternal soul.
Exactly. The Romans can dismantle the temple, they can kill your body, but your soul, your core essence, is completely untouchable.
It connects right back to the widow again. Her coins were physically worthless, but her spiritual reality was massive and secure.
Right. It's a total paradigm shift from temporary safety to eternal security. And then the text applies this to the very end of history.
Yeah, Jesus moves into apocalyptic imagery. Signs in the sun, moon, and stars. The nations in anguish at the roaring sea.
The psychological toll is huge. The notes mention people literally fainting from terror, just paralyzed by what's coming.
Because to an ancient person, the temple was like a microcosm of the universe. When it falls, it feels like the sky is caving in.
But the climax isn't just annihilation, it's vindication. Jesus describes the Son of Man returning in a cloud with power and glory.
And the instruction for the believers during this total global collapse is so specific, they aren't supposed to cower in fear, right?
No, they are commanded to stand up and lift their heads because redemption is near. It's a posture of confident expectation in the middle of chaos.
Which brings up a very practical question for you as a listener. If you hear this prophecy about war and family betrayal and the universe unraveling, how do you just live your daily life?
Right. Do you hide in a cave? Jesus actually addresses that psychology with a simple nature lesson. The parable of the fig tree.
He says when you see a tree sprout leaves, you don't need a prophet. You just know summer is coming.
It's natural inevitability. When these signs happen, the kingdom of God is near. History is turning.
But then there's a phrase that has confused people for a long time. Jesus says, this generation will not pass away until all things take place.
Yeah, the Greek word genea. If you read it as a strict 40-year window for the end of the world, the prophecy seems to fail.
because that generation obviously died, and the world hasn't ended yet.
But apocalyptic literature uses the term differently. The Holman notes suggest a dual fulfillment here.
Oh, interesting. How does the dual fulfillment work?
Well, for Jerusalem, it was literal. 70 AD was exactly 40 years after Jesus said this. That literal generation saw the temple fall.
And for the ultimate end of the world?
The news proposed that this generation refers to the future group of people who are alive when the final rapid-fire signs actually begin. The sequence will finish within their lifespan.
That makes a lot of sense. So knowing how volatile the future is, Jesus gives a behavioral warning. He doesn't say, stockpile food or weapons.
No, he warns against the trap of the mundane. He says, don't let your heart be weighed down by drunkenness or the anxieties of life.
The anxieties of life. That is such a brilliant juxtaposition with drunkenness.
It really is. You can numb yourself with hedonism, but you can also numb yourself by just obsessing over paying bills and daily survival.
Both extremes weigh you down and make you lose situational awareness. You miss the cosmic reality right in front of you.
So the required posture isn't a panicked doomsday prepper. The study notes call it spiritual vigilance.
It's like a night watchman on a city wall. He isn't awake because he's terrified of the dark. He's awake because he absolutely knows the dawn is coming.
It's vigilance rooted in expectation. They are told to watch and pray so they can stand upright before the Son of Man.
And then the chapter ends by bringing all this soaring prophecy back to a very quiet geographic reality.
Yeah, the Holman notes map out his daily routine during his final days. By day, he was teaching in the temple courts,
But at night, he left the city and slept on the Mount of Olives.
the very place where the Roman 10th Legion would camp 40 years later to destroy the city.
The historical irony is incredible. And that rhythm, going to the Mount of Olives at night, is exactly what gave Judas the logistical intelligence he needed to betray him.
Right, they knew exactly where he would be isolated, away from the crowds.
The narrative mechanics here are just flawless. The massive temple stones, the tiny copper coins, the Roman siege, the cosmic signs, they all lock together.
It really is a masterpiece of highlighting what is actually permanent.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, that contrast between the illusion of permanence and enduring reality is what sticks with me.
We constantly assume the massive 570-ton stones of our lives are what matter most.
Right. We build these noisy outward structures, our careers, bank accounts, public reputations. We want the loud clatter of silver in the bronze trumpet.
But history shows that the pinnacle of ancient permanence was incinerated. The gold melted, the stones were thrown into a valley and turned to dust.
Yet the quiet observation of a destitute widow giving a 1-centimeter copper coin, an act that meant nothing to human accountants, was immortalized.
It really puts it in perspective. The words spoken in that courtyard outlasted the Roman Empire.
They survived millennia. Right in the middle of this terrifying prophecy about the universe collapsing, Jesus says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away."
It demands a total recalibration of where we put our trust.
It really does.
Yeah.
So the provocative thought I want to leave you with as you go about your week is this. Take a hard look at your own accounting system. Are you exhausting yourself trying to build your life on massive, temporary stones that will just be pried apart when things get hot? Or are you building your foundation on the quiet, enduring reality of eternal words?
That is definitely something we all need to mull over today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. God blesses all of you listeners out there. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and we will catch you next time.